I'm really happy to be able to have this conversation with you, Francis, so that we can learn more about you. So tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to the point of being a part of the Price Associates team.
Great, Ron. Well, thank you for the question. And it is an interesting journey, at least on my part, the way I think about it, which involved my first job was a teacher, a science teacher, middle school, high school. And really what I got joy out of was helping those students see the world in a different way. It wasn't about the factual components. And maybe because I was in a rural area and their, context was very simple. Woods, from the bus and then around their houses. So they weren't really advantaged in many ways. So that was my start. And at that time, I began to get interested in adults. And so then I moved from there to do a startup, a nonprofit. It was a science center in Portland, Maine, which really I learned a lot about running things. It was successful. There's a little bit of back history, but in growing up, going through school, my father really wanted me to take some sort of business economics class, and I refused to do that. And I, in some ways, wish I'd had, because I went from there to another nonprofit that we grew, running another one, and it was serving the state of Maine where I am, and we served clients nationally, which then in turn, I was recruited for a job in Washington, D.C.
And there you were the executive director of the National Association of Science Teachers. Is that correct?
It's close. But yes, National Association of Science Teachers, NSTA. And it was really a very exciting opportunity. We looked at it as a wonderful opportunity. Many challenges and successes, and I learned a lot from that.
So in the midst of this, your bachelor's degree was in geology?
Actually, well, it had a mix. It was a combined science content in earth sciences and education from the teacher perspective. Yes.
Okay, and then you got a master's. What was your master's in?
Educational psychology. So how people
and then you got a PhD, and your PhD was in
educational leadership. So it sort of broadened it out to.
And this is where you really focused a lot more on adult learning, adult development.
Yeah. And all of the things that go into how we think as adults and how we interact, how we learn, process information, so. Very good. Yeah, it intrigues me.
Yeah, that's terrific. So at Price Associates, what are the kinds of problems that you help clients solve?
Well, I look at this as a growth opportunity. So I think, as simply I'll put it as I help leaders improve and expand their world and performance. And the way in which I do that is through them learning about themselves, what they do, how they interact with other people. And that, that's the broad kind of perspective. And so how that relates to problems, they will say, or a client will ask, or that they're having difficulty with this particular person or a team. And so sometimes I'll do work with teams also. Well, actually a lot of times with teams. And then we have to help them drill down into what their role is, what they're doing, what their choices are, and then the same with the teams.
You've been a part of our Complete Leader faculty. You've been a coach for Complete Leader programs, a subject matter expert. One of your areas of subject matter expertise was around quiet leaders, that not all leaders have to be these big, bombastic, outgoing, quote, charismatic leaders, that there are a lot of different versions of leadership. And of course, I've really always appreciated your thoughtful way when we're together, when our team's meeting, and when we're working with clients. You're a good thinker. You're very thoughtful, and you're very, I'd say one of the things that you excel in is that you present yourself in a friendly way. You're very easy to connect with, very easy for people to get to know. And I think that's part of what I appreciate about you is that you bring us a unique style of leadership yourself that I've seen work really well with a lot of our clients who are interested in a leader who's going to walk alongside them, not tell them what to do, but is going to help them think better.
Yeah. Well, you notice I didn't, when you asked about problems, I didn't immediately say I work with quiet leaders, just because they, or even myself, that's not something that you would normally do. Put that right out front. But yes, that's true. And I enjoy that. And I think that there's an approach, of strategies and methods to help people be more effective, be heard differently, appreciated differently. And so I thank you for your acknowledgement of what I might bring. And, you always wonder, and of course, the quieter leader will wonder more than the non. And so just helping people process that. And sometimes that comes from where these people might be more than others would be in, say, technical fields, so engineers or finance, or where they really are focused on details.
Yeah.
And even in the healthcare industry, so it's not necessarily the broader marketing kind of perspective, but those folks that are really focused on the narrow. And I do try to help them understand that partnerships are really important. So working with, if we want to use the categories introvert, extrovert, that if they are more introverted, to add and contribute and bring either an extrovert in so that you complement each other. So through their strengths, they really can be much more effective.
And this has been a focus of your writing also, Francis, this whole idea of collaboration and working effectively with others. And how in the times that we're in right now, with the new generations coming into the workforce and the kind of upbringing they've had, that collaborative leadership is becoming much, much more important as a part of how leaders get good results. I also just want to comment that I really appreciate you've been one of our pioneers at taking a fresh look at online learning. And so you've been experimenting with and developing e-learning programs that help people feel engaged and feel that they're really interacting with somebody, but in their own time, in their own way. So I really appreciate that. So let's shift gears for a moment. When you're not at work, what is it that you enjoy doing? Do you have any special hobbies or causes that are important to you?
Yes, I do. And I probably do more than I should, in that part of my character or person is that I do like to help others. So I do volunteer helping people start businesses and nonprofits, but also in terms of just recreational things, I like being outdoors. And so I cycle. I won't say bicycle because cycling has a different connotation, which is I ride a lot. And it's a really great release for me. It's also a social thing. And I sometimes think about it as the Zen of bicycle. It's not the Zen of motorcycle riding, if you're familiar with that book. But when you're there and your senses are what you see, what you smell, what you hear, all is sort of in overload, if you will, and paying attention, and you can't think about and get stressed of the day-to-day work. But so anyway, it's
your version of meditation.
Yes, although that does play in. And so I do also, as a side note, I have quite a few bonsai plants. So that's like the yin and the yang, I think,
Oh, wonderful. I did not know that. Oh, that's very interesting. And I've heard rumor that you're a pretty good sailor as well, that you enjoy racing and sailing when you get the opportunity.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if that's true. I do enjoy it, although I think from what I've heard, I'm not a golfer, what people tell me about golf is that it's frustrating as anything. That I talk about it as moments of brilliance, where all of a sudden you figure something out and you're moving really well, and then the next time it's just you're tanking. So I talk about it as moments of brilliance.
Well, this has been a great chance for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you, Ron.